Welcome to Beyond the Dollar Signs, a podcast dedicated to helping you gain financial clarity in a complex world. Today, I'm your host, Mark Taylan, alongside my colleague, Bill Tucker. Today, we're going to be discussing part 2 of reverse mortgages, and I have our special guest back, Mike Brouse, a reverse mortgage specialist from Rate Mortgage. Mike, welcome back. I'm glad to have you back on the show again. And I know we touched bases on the fundamental basis of what a reverse mortgage is on episode 1. So for our viewers who haven't seen that, please watch episode 1 if you haven't seen it yet. Mike, we got into a lot of the essentials with a reverse mortgage, but today's episode is really want to be focused on application and real life stories. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about how you've used reverse mortgages and the different application of it, because I believe as an advisor in my experience that it can be used multiple ways as a really strong tool to help clients really, one, have better lifestyle in retirement and actually access that asset, the real estate asset, and utilize that equity in a favorable way. So again, thanks for being here. And let's talk about the different applications that you've used it, and I'd love to hear your feedback.
Yeah, for sure. And hey, thanks. I had a great time on the first segment. It's great to be back. I think we got into some really good stuff, and things sometimes are borderline in definitely insightful, but sometimes borderline. Oh, you're challenging my beliefs on this. So if the folks didn't get to see the first part, the pop quiz, I think was gold, and it helps a lot of people learn.
Thank you. Yeah, you put me on the spot, tested my knowledge, but I love it.
Right. So here's one thing is, we talked about impact, how having the right financial planner, having the right financial tool, and then having the right financial plan can be everything. Mm-hmm. And when I tell you that I used to get excited about getting first-time home buyers in their first home, that was everything for me. Because again, we answer back to the purpose of me doing what I do every day, which was affecting the families and giving people hope around their finances. So we had a customer who comes to mind. Her name is Bonnie. She's here in town, and it went like this. The realtor who I work with a lot, Donna, called me and says, Mike, I have a seller who called me who was going to get her home ready for sale. I was going to list it. We were going to sell it for her, and then we were going to figure out her next step, either renting or moving to a different part of the country. And we're 2 weeks into this, and I'm over at the house, and we're looking at the things we need to do. She had some issues with the roof and some dry rot in different places. And Bonnie, this is Donna telling me this, Bonnie broke down and said, Don, I can't sell the house. And she started crying right there at the kitchen table, breaking down, going, I can't, I raised my family here. There's so many memories. I don't want to leave. My neighbors, I love them. We have total history together. And she goes, oh, okay. Well, look, if you don't want to sell your house, what caused you to sell it in the first place? Mm-hmm. She says, well, I got cash flow is horrible for me. She goes, okay, well, look, have you thought about a reverse mortgage? And she goes, no, I haven't heard the greatest things about those. Do you know somebody? She goes, yeah, this guy named Mike. That's all he does is reverse mortgages. Do you want me to have him call you? And she goes, yeah. She goes, he's not one of those sales guys, is he? Yeah. She goes, no. He's kind of more of a holistic planning guy. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, move on. And he may even give you some suggestions about what to do if you don't move forward with a reverse mortgage. Sure. She goes, okay, I feel comfortable with that. So I actually called her and said, hey, Bonnie, this is Mike, reverse mortgage specialist. Donna tells me that you have some questions about a reverse mortgage. When would be a good time to meet? And she goes, well, come to my house next Tuesday morning and we'll talk about it, but not too early. probably 10:30 is fine.
Okay.
So Tuesday, I get over there. I pull up in the driveway, and the house isn't that it's in decent shape. I mean, there were
Yeah.
some weeds in the driveway, and there was saw a little bit of peeling paint on the gutters, but overall it looked like an okay home. Because sometimes we drive up to homes and it's like,
Yeah.
this might not work.
Right. Right.
In her case, looks like she had been doing a good job. So I get there and I knock on the door, and Bonnie comes. She goes, "Hi, Mike, come on in." And as I'm walking in the house, I'm noticing pictures, on the wall of like probably her husband and her kids. And you can tell she's very family, oriented in that, she had the pictures. And so I walk in and she says, "Here, sit down." We sit down. She goes, "You want some water?" I go, "No, I'm good." She goes, "Well, thank you for coming over. I was going to sell my home. And then I don't want to sell my home now." I said, "Okay, well, what's going on?" And she goes, "Well, my husband died 5 years ago, and when he died, 2/3 of our income went away,
Hmm.
and I'm okay. My mortgage is super small, my payment's low, but I just don't have any money to do the things that I want to do." I go, "Oh, okay, so when your husband died, 2/3 of your income went away, and right now you're having some cash flow challenges." She goes, "Yeah, so right after he died, I knew I was going to be okay with the basic bills. But then if I wanted to, go out to lunch with, my friends, or, maybe go on a small vacation, I got a job. So I got a job throwing a newspaper." I go,
Okay.
"You're throwing a newspaper at
Oh my
like
gosh.
76 years old?"
Yeah.
She goes, "Yeah." And, all I do every morning is drive up to the newspaper place. They give me a bundle in the summertime. I take it back to the house, and, I fold it in the kitchen here.
I see.
And I said, "Oh, okay. So you're doing that." She goes, "Most of the time I do it at the newspaper place, especially during the winter, because, you can see my house. There's not a lot of room in here. But I'll
Right.
do it in the garage in the summertime, and things seem to work pretty well." I go, "Okay, so what's going on with that?" She goes, "Well, just this. They told me in the fall that I was not going to have a heated room anymore in the newspaper building to fold the newspapers." And my heart just sank because there's no heat in my garage. And I'm barely keeping up with kind of my heating bill in the wintertime anyways.
Right.
I can't do it out there. And there's really no room to do it in here. And I go, I was going to ask you something. What is that thing in the corner of your your living room?
Uh-huh.
She goes, "Oh, that." I go, "Yeah, it's like this big wooden beam that goes from like, it's like it almost looks like it's 8 feet long." She goes, "Yeah. So one of my hobbies is I make blankets." I go, "Oh, you make blankets and you use that device right there to make the blankets?" She goes, "Yeah, I make blankets for my grandkids and for the senior center." I go, "Wait a minute, you're our senior, but you're still, trying to help the seniors at the senior center." She goes, "Yeah, I love it." And
Yeah.
I'll show you later, but like I have 2 spare bedrooms and they're full of fabric and yarn, and that's where I keep all my stuff. But when I do my big blankets, I'm doing it out here in the living room. That's what all this stuff is. I go, "Oh, okay, I get it. I
Yes.
get it." I go, "So let's go back to the newspaper thing. So you're not able, you don't feel like you can have your part-time job anymore with that part-time income?" And she goes, "No, I can't. If I don't have that room to fold the newspapers in the wintertime, I'm not going to be able to do it." I go, "Oh, okay. So um, you want to quit your job? You want to have you want to have more better cash flow, and that might include paying off the mortgage." She goes, "Yeah, for sure. That was the main thing, and then not and to stop working." And I go, "Okay, what else?" She goes, she stopped and paused and looked up to the right or looked up to the left. I don't know what that is when somebody's getting emotionally
Hmm.
engaged. And she stopped and she says, "Mike, I have 2 kids. My daughter's in where she's at, and my son is in Virginia. He's a career military. I
Hmm.
have 2 wonderful grandkids, and I love my daughter-in-law, but it's killing me that I can't spend time with them." Like he can't just get on an airplane and bring everybody out here. And I haven't had the money to go see him. And I want to have some memories with them. I want them to know mama. I want them to know grandma. I want them to, I want to hold them and play with them, while I can still do it.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, so you want to pay off your existing mortgage. And did you say you wanted to take care of some things around the house? She goes, yes. My husband used to do all that stuff, and the neighbors are, they're well-meaning, but honestly, I don't want some of these neighbors up on a ladder inside my house. I know it wouldn't end well, but there are some things that I need to do. So pay off the mortgage, get some money to repair the home, quit your job, and then have some freedom, financial freedom to go and visit your son, daughter-in-law, and their kids. She goes, yes. Can you help me with that? And I go, yeah. I think I can. Based on what I know about the home, I did some, homework on, the value and, what you owe. And I appreciate you sharing that with me. And I go, what questions do you have for me about the reverse mortgage? And then, so we went over the 3 myth perceptions, kind of like we did with the pop quiz in the first segment of this.
Sure.
And she goes, really? I thought that the bank owned the home.
Yeah.
And I thought that all the equity was going to go to the bank when I left. And if I got to owing too much money, they were going to kick me out. I go, none of these things are true, Bonnie. Yeah. She goes, let's do it.
Wow.
I go, all right, let's do it. So we did a reverse mortgage, and we actually were able to, because she didn't have a lot of extra money at the time. Sure. I actually, worked with a contractor to come in and do the repairs, provide the invoice. And I go, Bonnie, if this reverse mortgage doesn't work, they're going to put a mechanic's lien on the home. So they're going to get their money one way or the other. But because of my relationship with the contractor, he and his team are willing to do the work as long as they're going to get paid when the reverse mortgage closes. Sure. She goes, oh, that's fine. I want to do that. Okay. That's perfect. So we closed the reverse mortgage. Mm-hmm. And I go, Bonnie, what are you going to do? She goes, I already got my ticket. I'm going to see my son.
I love it.
Yeah. And so 6 months goes by, when I'm checking in like maybe every 30 days, not probably more like every 45 days, just, seeing how things are going. And I get this call one morning, and it's Bonnie's daughter. She goes, hey, Mike, this is so-and-so. I don't know if you remember me or not, but I'm Bonnie's daughter. And I go, oh, yeah, I remember you. And the reason I say it that way is because she was against the reverse mortgage.
Right.
She was all up in my face.
Understand.
About, it was not a good choice.
Yeah.
Mom, what are you doing? And, so working with her. And then a lot of times, as you know, it's a family affair, right? We all got to get everything. We got to get them on board. Yeah. So she calls me. She goes, I just need to know. At first she goes, yeah. I go, yeah, I remember you. Mm-hmm. Like I'm overlooking all the things that she, had said. She goes, I go, yeah, how's your mom? There was like this pregnant pause, and I'm all,
oh no.
She goes, well, you remember my mom went and visited my brother. I go, yeah, she was sending me pictures on her new iPhone. Yeah, I go, it was wonderful. Wow. I felt like I was, vicariously, living through pictures that she was sending me and enjoying in the things. And she made a couple other stops too with some very interesting people. She goes, yeah, my mom knows people all over the place. Oh, I go, yeah, no, it's great. She goes, well, my mom got back and she went to the doctor because she had this cough. And she went to the doctor, and the doctor said, Bonnie, you've got like 2 months to live. And it wasn't, she couldn't operate. The doctor couldn't operate. There was no they didn't recommend chemo or anything like that. And she goes, Mike, my mom passed away a couple of weeks ago. And I'm all, oh, man. And I just need to know what I need to do with the reverse mortgage now. You were so helpful to her. You helped her, get the house. And I just want to apologize because I can see the wisdom that my mom had, and that the house is totally fixed up now. Yes. Me and my brother are just going to sell it. We don't have to put a penny into it. Right. So I want to thank you for that.
Wow.
And I kind of told her, what she needed to do in order to, get the mortgage all paid off and list the home. And they both were going to do very well, splitting up the equity that was in the home. But this is the kind of thing that in the moment, I thought to myself, thank goodness she was able to spend that time with those grandkids, because
That's
now they're
right.
going to remember Bonnie.
Yes.
And so that's one story out of many
Uh-huh.
that are especially impactful to me, because I tend to kind of get attached to the people I help because I see how it, changes their life. I got her what she wanted, and she
Yeah.
got what she wanted. Of
Y-
course, the cancer part wasn't in the plan at all,
Yeah.
but it happens.
I talk a lot about clients, especially ones that I meet for the first time, right? They accumulate assets, right? And so they work all these years to accumulate assets. And I think that transition of when they get ready to retire, it's, you've accumulated these assets to buy you income and buy you time, right? And often people don't think about the home as that asset, as we've talked about in the prior episode, is they don't realize that they can utilize that asset, which is the home equity, effectively to really open up the door to change their lifestyle, to flip the script with, cash flow, to do the maintenance that she needs. And I understand exactly what you when you say it's a family affair, because it's exactly what it is. Because you need to make sure, I believe so, is to involve the people that this affects, right? The children, they need to be on board. Why? Because, of course, they want to make sure they want to be on the same page as their parents. And also at some point, the children may need to step in to take care of their mother, right? In the event that the illness was more long term, what if they needed to step in and say, "Oh, I need long term care from my mom. What assets do we have to pull from?" And so I really applaud you what you've did for that family, because I think it changed and gave her time to do what she wanted to do, made a very positive impact on the family. So I think that's a lovely story. So I thank you for sharing that. I run into a lot of people in my practice where they're in that stage of having to take care of parents, right? And long-term care, statistically is very high once crossed 80. You start to see the percentages are high that you're going to need some form of long-term care. And so oftentimes I do see that as, when clients are limited with assets. And, long-term care is a very expensive endeavor, right? 8 to 10,000, even more a month here in the Bay Area. And one of the things in financial planning that when I'm doing these analysis is what happens when an event like that happens? What resources do people have? And so I think it's so important, as you did, is involve the daughter, probably the son, to get them on the same page to understand. Because I imagine if Bonnie had an event where she needed care, having the daughter really understand that process, to know that, here's my mom's cash flow, here's how much equity we have to pull. It's a resource that the family wouldn't otherwise have. Maybe they would have to fire sale the house, and now they have options. And I wanted to touch on something. When somebody passes, how much time do they have? What's the time frame to pay the bank? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, you want the real story?
Yes, please.
Okay. I won't do a pop quiz because this
Okay.
is a really obscure kind of. Okay, so this is the deal. As soon as the servicer of the loan is aware that the owners of the home are permanently out of the home, that's a trigger event.
Okay.
So the servicers have lots of technology to determine when people pass away. Not so
Mm,
much when they move out or go to a facility, but they have ways of knowing. So to answer your question, the loan becomes due and payable as soon as the owners of the home are out of the home permanently. Now, here's the thing. There's going to be a letter delivered to the home. And sometimes it happens so fast because I get calls all the
okay.
time. Now, I thought you said. Okay, now this is what I said, that you're going to get a letter, and it's not going to be, we're so sorry to hear about the passing of your parents. It does not say that.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, they may use language like foreclosure in there.
Ah.
because they're not messing around. They want to get paid. Okay. But here's the deal. As long as you're in communication with the servicer concerning the demise of the property,
Mhm.
you have up to 1 year.
Ah.
Okay. But you need to let them know. And you do it typically in 30, 60, 90, or quarterly periods. As
I
long as
see.
you're in communication and there's notes in their system and they believe whoever's telling them the information
Sure.
is true and accurate,
Yes.
um, they have up to a year. And so that is a comfort in knowing. But no, that letter will come, and it is not addressed by a clinical psychiatrist who's worried about their emotions.
Yeah.
It's hardcore. It looks like an attorney letter.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So just know that. And the reason they have to do that is because what we found, Mark,
Mhm.
is there's a lot of adult children living in their folks' home.
Ah,
And
yes.
they think, oh, I'm just going to live here. My mom's got a reverse mortgage. And it's like,
Yeah.
not today,
Not
baby.
gonna
It
happen.
doesn't work
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
This is not a transfer. It's not an assumable loan.
Sure.
And we have this home on the radar because that's the only way the investor gets paid. I mean, it makes
Understand.
sense. If you were lending money, then all of a sudden the person that was lending you money passed on, wouldn't you want to know how you're going to get paid?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's the rub on that. But thanks for asking. But
Yeah.
that is the real deal. They're going to get a letter as soon as the investors or the servicer is aware that they're out of the home permanently.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so there's some other nuances there that I've had to, deal with. And in some cases, there are smart criminals.
I see.
And so they don't divulge everything about every little aspect of this.
I
But
see.
trust me, there's technology in place to know whether or not those folks are living in the home.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Another scenario that I see, and here in Bonnie's case, we'll use that as an example. She wanted to stay in the home, but let's say, I do run into a lot of clients that the home they have is too big for them, right? And so maybe they're, in this case, she was a widow, but I've seen this in a case where a widow's in a two-story house that's got 3 or 4 bedrooms and it's upstairs and downstairs. Can we talk a little bit about the application of using a reverse mortgage to purchase a property, which I don't think a lot of our
Absolutely.
folks know about? Yes.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
If more realtors knew about it, they could literally revive their real estate practice if they focused on this one segment. Now, here's the thing, to your point,
Okay.
I'm going to say there's thousands of people, even in California, who are living in a home that doesn't suit their needs physically. To
Mm-hmm.
your point, they can't get upstairs. And they're not putting one of those elevators that you sit in and strap in and go up the staircase. Some people do that, but it's not
Right.
always a functional option, right?
Sure.
Sometimes even staying in the chair can be a challenge for some people who are physically limited. So I took the word downsize out of my vocabulary and I replaced it with the word right size.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, and I, sometimes people say it's downsizing, Mike. I go, so sometimes it's not, because you can literally take the home you're in, put it on the market, listen up, realtors, list the home, have the sellers of that home become buyers now for the next home. You get to help them find the next home. We
Right.
call that two sides.
Right.
Right. And I know you got a real estate background too, right?
Yes. I do.
Yeah, or somebody on your team does.
I
And
do.
so they're double siding it. They're not double siding it, but they're getting two sides out of it. But the most importantly, they're getting the senior homeowner in a home that actually works for them. And the reason I say it might not be downsizing is because we have people all the time that take the proceeds from the sale of the home and they actually leverage a more expensive property
Mm-hmm.
because there's no minimum payment required.
That's
So
right.
typically, the numbers look like this. If you want to buy $1 million home, you're going to need about $600,000. But if we move this same scenario into maybe a Central Valley home, like maybe certain parts of Fresno, Modesto, Stockton, Lodi,
Mm-hmm.
prices are in the, let's just say 550. And
Right.
people are going to say, Mike, they're much higher than that now. I go, okay, I don't think the average home is, above that. But
Yeah.
So on a $600,000 home, like 50% would be what, 350?
300,000. Yeah.
So let's bring 400 into the transaction,
Sure.
buy the home, you know, and to your point about the family affair thing, you get the kids involved in the home that they know they're going to get when mom and
Sure.
dad move on. That
Right.
might make a difference,
Of
and that they're
course.
actually not buying what they can afford. They're buying what suits their needs at the time.
That's right.
So it might, okay, so there's a lot of things there. And I'm not suggesting that a senior homeowner sells the home they're in and goes and buys something that's not affordable. But when you say, okay, what's affordable? Well, what's affordable is what kind of payment they can afford.
Sure.
Well, in a lot of cases, they're able to preserve their tax basis. And I'm not giving tax advice here, not a
Right.
CPA, and I don't play one on TV, but they can transfer their tax basis, especially with Prop 19.
Right.
That's kind of
Right.
Prop 13 has been around forever, but it was kind of like, okay, these are the guidelines. But with Prop 19, you can transfer your tax basis,
Mhm.
right? So that solves one of their fears, because that's a lot of times what they're afraid of.
Oh, absolutely.
They probably,
Yes.
yeah. So, anyways, to answer your question,
Yeah.
there's those guys, you ask them what time it is, and then they explain the watch, and they're all, just answer my question. So I feel like
It's
I'm doing
okay.
a little bit of that,
No, I love it.
explaining the
Yeah.
watch, but
Yeah.
it kind of gives you context,
Of course.
and every little tidbit of information that the audience gets, they're able to
Yeah.
connect the dots and saying, he's right. My aunt and uncle have been in this home for years. Like the yard is turning into a jungle.
Uh,
It's like, okay, well, we have a solution for that, right?
yeah.
Don't have a yard.
Yeah.
So
And
those are,
that's great. Yeah. And I really love that. I mean, I think that the application of that is, like you said, they've got a lot of equity. The house doesn't fit them. You right size to the home that does fit them. If they've got a lot of equity and you need 60% to buy the new house, you potentially even have extra money to use for other things, cash flow, investments,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
so I think it opens up the door to, a lot of different options. From a financial planning standpoint, as an advisor, I look at that as being able to utilize that equity more efficiently, right? Because now you now have a source in the event of, you bought the house that's right sized to you. Let's say, you lived in the Bay Area where everything's 1.5 million single family, right? So, maybe you had to use 600K to buy the next house, but it left you with $500,000 of equity that you can now use to generate income. You can use it to help children and help family that maybe, people talk about, how do you want to gift? Do you want to do it with a warm hand or a cold hand, right? Do you want to help your children now and see them flourish, or do you want to help them after, after you pass, right? And so I think it opens up the door for possibilities that, number one, they may have not thought they had that option, right? And so I think you've opened up, I think, a line of thinking that, wow, we have all these things that we can do because of the utilization of our equity, and the reverse mortgage is that tool to help us. That's the path to get us to that. So I really love that. Do you see more and more realtors and more people kind of grasping that idea of a reverse? It's called a reverse purchase, correct? Is that the right terminology?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what, Mark? A lot of people don't know about it. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Um, a lot of people don't know about reverse mortgages,
Agree.
because, in the past, they may have had some things associated with them that weren't so great. But hey, now there's so much compliance. And, we were mentioning earlier about the amount of equity that's still in the home just to do the reverse mortgage.
Hmm.
That brings a lot of confidence to financial professionals,
Hmm.
knowing that you're not leveraging all the equity in the home.
Sure.
And here's another thing that, in addition to it being a awesome financial planning tool and an awesome things for realtors is for the reverse for purchase, and an awesome thing for homeowners to take advantage of, would be the fact that there's third party counseling. So we really didn't talk about the the compliant part of the reverse mortgage and how many eyeballs are on it from a regulatory standpoint.
Right.
So a lot of times financial professionals get comfort in knowing they're putting their name behind the product, or they're putting, like, if you sent me somebody, Mark, to help with a reverse mortgage, you're putting your name out there.
Of course.
You can't afford to have somebody screw this up. Pardon my French.
Yes.
Right. So, but in addition to the loan officer or the specialist that you're working with, you know that a good portion of that equity is not going to be touched in the calculation of how much they can receive at closing.
Correct.
But there's third-party counseling that 100% of the time has to take place by a non-interested, HUD-trained third party. Okay, so that is another thing right there. It's not like somebody in a dark office going, yeah, this is what I can get you. What do you think? It's like, no, like everybody knows about this.
Yeah.
Seniors are a protected class.
Absolutely. I was going to say that. Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right about that. The demographic is a senior. Yes.
The demographic is a senior and their kids, to your point. But here's one thing that you mentioned about, yes, right sizing. That's awesome. One of the things along that is like, what do we do with the extra money? Like, do we put it in a CD? Probably not. I'm not giving financial advice, but you and I both know that there are tools out there. You obviously much, much better than are qualified to talk about it than me. But are there not tools out there where if somebody used, like on that $1 million, netting $1 million out of the sale, 600,000 goes to secure the new home. They have $500,000. They say, Mark, what do I do with this $500,000? Right. You're all, okay, like you can't afford any risk, but there are products that we can put this money into that in 5 years, you're going to have another wave of retirement dollars.
Correct. Or you have another pool of money.
What's that?
Or you have another pool of money to use in the event of a long-term care need, which is potentially around the corner, right? So you've addressed
around the corner.
Yeah, you've addressed it.
Yeah. None of us are going to get well and then die.
Right. Exactly right.
I'm not trying to be irreverent or flippant. I understand sickness. I had it in my own family. I've had it in my own life. I'm a cancer survivor. So I'm not making fun of that. I'm just saying, look, 100% of us, as far as I know, are going to die, and we're probably going to get sick before we die.
That's right.
So unless we plan for that,
yes,
we're our heads in the sand. We got to know what's going to happen. Look, I'm not anywhere near, where I could be, right? With regards to that. So I'm not talking from this ivory tower, like I've done so good. No, I haven't. I've made a lot of mistakes and I'm paying for them now. I'm 62 years old. So, but I have seen them, and I've seen, I know for myself, and I see hundreds of people that I've helped experience these things in life. Yeah. Again, a lot of times it's not, the blame is not on the individual. The blame is not on the financial professional. It's just sometimes we make decisions on what we know at the time. We find out other things down the road. And so then we have to regroup and come together. But the equity in the home is a great option if somebody, wants to utilize it.
Mike, you've been so insightful, and thank you again for being on the podcast. How does somebody reach you? What are the next steps? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Absolutely. My cell number is 707-888-8230. Say that one more time. 707-888-8230. Or they can, if they want to run a calculator, want to know how much they can get out of a reverse mortgage or any other questions, I've got some training videos on michaelbrouse.com.
Oh, nice.
michaelbrouse.com.
Very, very nice. Yes. Yeah, I really want to thank you for being on the podcast. It was so insightful. For our viewers, remember, again, this is episode 2, more advanced planning. If you haven't seen episode 1, please go back and watch that. I think it'd be very important to put the two together. And with that being said, Mike's contact will also be in the show notes. So, feel free to reach out to me or Mike directly and, further the conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Mark and Mike, this has been a really, really fascinating and very informative podcast because I've learned things that I didn't realize about reverse mortgages, and I know that you've wiped out a bunch of other myths. And for those of you who have been listening to part 2 and not part 1, I would urge you, please go back and listen to part 1. And I think you'll call Mark up and thank him for that. As a matter of fact, for those of you who are listening to this podcast who are not clients of Mark's or who don't know Mark, there is a way you can get a hold of him. And Mark, why don't you give the listeners a quick take on how they could reach out to you?
So my information will be in the show notes. Our office number is 408-778-8280. So please reach out. And again, our contact information will be in the notes.
Yeah, which is great. And both Mark and Mike's numbers are in the show notes as well. So if you're doing other things and don't have a pen or paper that you can write things down on, don't worry. It's there out there in the big digital domain. You can access it later. One of the things you can also do that's really simple you can do right now before we sign off is hit the follow button. Become a subscriber to the podcast, because when you're a subscriber, you're automatically notified when a new edition of the podcast is released, and you can give that one a listen. The other thing I would ask is that if you like these, you find them informative, you find them useful, please rate it. Give it a good rating and tell people about it. Word of mouth promotion is invaluable, and we'd very much appreciate it. And I'm Bill Tucker. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen today. So on behalf of Mark Taylan and everybody at 360 Advisors, thank you. And we will catch you next time. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Dollar Signs Financial Clarity. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at advisors360pwm.com or give us a call at 408-778-8280. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Advisors 360. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions that you may have regarding your investment planning. ECA does not provide tax or legal advice. Guest opinions are their own. It may not reflect those of ECA. The viewer is encouraged to seek their own individualized tax and legal advice from a qualified professional.